Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that is often heard in workplaces in India is that hard work never killed anyone. Next time someone tells you that, just point them to the direction of Japan. Japan is famous for its brutal work culture. It is also infamous for something that is called karoshi, which is death from overwork. It's been happening in Japan since the 70s. I very respectfully want to point this out to the Venerable Narayan Murthy. Mr. Murthy, the founder of Infosys, wants us to work 70 hours a week. 70 hours a week would mean 10 hours every single day without a single off. To me, that sounds like a health hazard. But well, everyone is entitled to their opinion and their work ethic. I work about 10 hours a day, 50 hours a week. I honestly think it's too much. I would like to cut it down to 40. If I can, one day I will. Maybe I'll go the French way and do a 35-day week. That would be ideal. But Mr. Murthy believes that young people in India need to put in exceptionally long hours at work if they want to see India become a global economic powerhouse. That statement was made in a podcast interview with ex-Infosys CFO Mohandas Pai. Listen in to what he said.
It is the responsibility of every Indian, but more so the youth, to consolidate on that respect and to enhance that respect manyfold. And as I have said many times before, the only way the world will respect anybody is performance. Based on performance. That's where I often used to say performance leads to recognition, recognition leads to respect, and respect leads to power. China is a great example. So therefore, my request to all the wonderful youth of this country is that realize this and work 12-hour days for the next 20 years, 50 years, whatever it is, so that India too becomes a number one nation or number two nation, whatever it is, in terms of its GDP. And remember, even if we become bigger than US, our per capita
income will be much lower.
Will be much more than where we are today, but still be much less than the US.
Statement by Narayan Murthy, I don't see why people should be upset. Young people, when they start off their career, should work very, very hard. They have to learn, they have to develop skills, they have to develop expertise, and it only comes through hard work. And after they finish some 5-10 years, they will be very, very good. And that's the time when they can say, I want some more work-life balance, etc. All great societies have been built up by the hard work. We have to work. We're a poor country.
Now, most of us on an average spend about 9 to 10 hours at work. The French are very proud of their 35 hours week, but they are a developed nation. The French typically will work only 7 hours a day. In India, some people brag about their 70-hour work week. Others are on the other end of the spectrum, chasing the 4-day work week dream. But how much is too much or too little is the question. And do long work hours mean more productivity? Now, most research across the world tells us that productivity falls sharply after 50 hours of work per week and deep dives after 55 hours. So honestly, is there any point putting in 70 hours? But again, it really all depends on your work appetite, the dreams that you are chasing, the passion you follow, and the work-life balance that you want to strike. Prime Minister Modi, for example, famously works 20 hours a day and gets 4 hours of sleep. Needless to say, Mr. Narayan Murthy's remarks have deeply divided India's workforce. Is he reflecting the work ethic of a bygone era, or do Indians really need to put in more hours at work? Many opinions being offered. Let me get in the opinion of our guest this evening. Jitendra Bhargav is a former ED at Air India, joining us on the broadcast. Sunil Alag is chairperson of SKA Advisors, and Rituparna Chakraborty is co-founder and director at Teamlease. Tamal Bandyopadhyay is an author. He's also a consulting editor as Business Standard. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time here on Mirror Now. Who should I start with? I mean, this is a subject that has left the internet deeply divided, Sunil Alag, today. Which part of the divide do you stand in? Which side of the divide do you stand on?
No, I feel that what he said is to work hard. I mean, that we all agree on. I don't think anyone over here disagrees with the fact that we have to work hard. But I think he's talking about his time when he talks about 12 hours per day. Look, I mean, we've got AI which helps. We've got so many things which help us that maybe we need just 8 hours a day max, because you got to keep a balance between house as well as your work. And that's what the highlights are today. So AI helps you work for about 7 to 8 hours a day, as opposed to 12 hours when we didn't have AI, when we didn't have a mobile phone, when we didn't have anything with us. So we worked very hard, like our parents who studied under lamplights and lanterns and everything. But look, today we don't need so many hours a week. Whatever Narayan Murthy is talking about is hard work, that we all agree on. But to work for 12 hours a day today is out of the question, because you have so many things which assist you in doing it. And therefore, 7 to 8 hours is more than enough, for which I think is more than enough. But, you know, you can carry on discussing this till the cows come home. Even... Look, when I started, we worked...
True.
Yeah. 7 to 8 hours is, I think, we need to work that much.
So here's the thing, you know, Mr. Narayan Murthy's wife, Sudha Murthy, who had interviewed about 6 months ago, had famously said that Mr. Murthy could put in all those work hours and build Infosys because he had her at home to look after the house and the kids. So there is a work-life balance that needs to be struck. Is Mr. Murthy, Rituparna, is Mr. Murthy reflecting the work ethic of a bygone era? Because, you know, if we all take the advice that Mr. Murthy, look, we all want our country to progress, right? And none of us will shy away from hard work. But honestly, asking us to work 70 hours a week is a bit too much. It essentially ends up being 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. It sounds like a recipe from hell to me.
Thanks, Shreya, for having me on this show. I think definitely we all agree that Mr. Narayan Murthy was essentially alluding to the fact that India really can't afford, or Indians can't really afford to be lazy and sit back, and we should be proactive, on our toes, and work hard. I think what's problematic is trying to link the hours of work with that contributing to India's improved productivity. Honestly, that is something which I do not agree with. And I have reasons that I believe that India's productivity, I mean, India is one of the lowest worldwide in terms of productivity. I think we are one of the bottom 4 or 5 in terms of productivity levels. So in spite of already being the 5th largest GDP in the country, why so? And I think the answer, the truth lies in terms of looking at India in 2 folds. There is one India, which is the 10% of the formal workforce, where you and me belong, honestly. There is 80% of the workforce who are in the informal sector, who, by the way, in any case are working 16, 17, God knows, maybe 18 hours a day to make a living. Now, what is productivity? Productivity means that your output has to be higher than the input, right? It's as simple as that. I don't think the 16, 17 hours that these people are putting in is equivalent to the same job being done by someone in Japan and Germany, and the output they provide and the earnings they get. And that's the reality of India. And that's got nothing to do with us standing where we are with our given circumstances, doing more hours. India has a huge skill problem, and it's a institutionalized problem in this country. If our skill levels do not improve, only 4% of our people have access to vocational training. Indians can go on slogging their heart out, but they will not really move an inch in terms of our productivity. We have infrastructural challenges. Any average Indian today who is in the professional 10% of the workforce, in any case, are doing 12 hours. If you really put in the hours that they spend commuting, really negotiating to the poor infrastructure that we have. our cities are really not smart cities. We have so few cities, right? In the first place. Even if you work from home, because somebody said maybe work from home is a solution. What's the solution really? I mean, try working from home and you'll see all through the day the kind of hurdles you'll have to go through just to keep your house infrastructure on, whether it's your electricity situation, the plumber, God knows what else. So honestly, while I understand his intent, this is a much bigger and larger problem. India is very soon going to be probably top 3 GDP. But in the reality of India is that we are 142 in terms of per capita income. Like if somebody does, I mean, I have worked Shreya 16 hours or 17 hours for the last 25 years. Somebody else doing the job I do in Japan, I know the difference in that person's outcomes, outputs, earnings as compared to me. We've got to change that before we urge Indians to do more work. His intent, I totally get it. When you're young, you can't be sitting idle. You really need to work hard. But then we are in a world where we can work smart. We have so much technology. We can have digital infrastructure in every aspect of our life in India. India is shown the world what UPI can do in terms of unlocking productivity gains for a large cross section. And I think similarly, we can leverage digital in every aspect of our life. So let's start looking at those aspects rather than expect individuals to do more hours. That's my limited point, Shreya.
Mr. Bhargav, we've all heard what Mr. Narayan Murthy has said. He said that in a podcast with Mohandas Pai. Was in your, we all understand the intent. We all understand the intent and no one is questioning the intent. But was the statement made without realizing some of the points that we have just heard from Rituparna?
No, I would say that Mr. Narayan Murthy has been a successful entrepreneur. He knows what he is talking. He is conscious of the fact that our productivity in the country is low. He has qualified his statement that if we want to be one of the best productivity to match the world standards, we need to be working more. One is, let's get our productivity standards higher. Have we attained? When we are at the end of receiving service of somebody, we invariably say they are unproductive, inefficient. We say that so often when we're receiving the services. Now, the other part is there is an urban divide and there's a rural divide. There is an industrial divide, there's a service industry divide. What the two preceding speakers have been talking about are basically the service and the urban one. Commuting time, all that kind of a thing, that is good enough. But when you are in a factory and you need to be productive, you need to produce at the bare cost kind of a thing, you're referring to perhaps that kind of thing. I may not agree that 70 hours, maybe 48 hours that we currently have and our people have been working to reduce hours. If you remember, when I started my career, we had 5.5 day working. When I ended my career, it was 5 day working. Saturday was a complete off. So in production, when you are in a factory, it still goes on with 6 day working week. And they work longer hours than the office people. So he is referring primarily to the people who are working in factory, who need to produce more, who need to be more efficient, who need to be more cost effective, who need to be competitive when you are dealing in the international market. That's what the essence is. And I wouldn't agree on this, that he is talking of his era. No, he is conversant, he is active. He knows what he's talking about from the country's perspective. I fully endorse his statement. It may not be 70 hours, it may be 64 hours, it may be 60 hours, but there is a compelling need for us to increase the number of working hours for our people if we need to really get onto a GDP of 10% and become the third largest economy faster than what we are visualizing, or because of the default of the other countries who are not growing at the pace that they were growing in the past.
Tamal Bandyopadhyay, it may be all very well for Mr. Murthy to say 70 hours a week is what young people need to put in. It may all be very well for us to say that look at the Prime Minister of this country. At his age, he's working 20 hours a day. He's just getting 4 hours of sleep. But it just doesn't sound practical to me. I mean, I'm half dead after 9 hours or 10 hours. I don't know what else I can do that will increase the productivity of my channel if I work anymore. What I will produce will end up being substandard, nothing else.
Yes, Rehab, thanks. I think I agree with what Mr. Alak said. I have tremendous respect for Mr. Murthy for whatever he has done and has been doing. But actually, if he has meant it in the sense he is looking for hard work and more hard work, I agree with him. But unfortunately, the 70-hour thing sounds pretty absurd, and I think it's not the right approach to link productivity with the working hours. You know, I can work much lesser time and be much more productive. We are barking at the wrong tree. I mean, you just look at this. I'm looking at this 2002 World Bank number. It's an ILO number, International Labour Organization, sourced from World Bank. Now, unemployment, he's talking about young people working more. Now, youth unemployment rate in India was 23.22%, higher than neighbor Pakistan, where 11.3%, Bangladesh 12.9%, and Bhutan 14.4%. In the same report, the same year, 2022, unemployment rate in China was 13.2%, Syria 22.1%, Indonesia 13%, Malaysia 11.7%, Vietnam 7.4%, South Korea 6.9%, and Singapore 6.1%. So when you talk about GDP growth and becoming the third largest economy, etc., I think we are barking at the wrong tree. I mean, there are certain other things to address. Productivity does not depend on the working hours, and particularly in the new world, when you're talking about you can work for anywhere else, you can work 10 days at a stretch and take 3 days holiday. So there are multiple ways of raising productivity, not this. I just want to give you one more example. You look at, you walk into any public sector bank branch or any other office. Typically, they end up working probably 10, 12 hours. If anybody goes home before 8 o'clock, this person is just looked down upon. How can he or she is leaving at 8 o'clock? But you look at the productivity part vis-a-vis other entities in the same space who use more AI and ML and technology, other parts of it, etc., etc. So sitting in office or even home and working very long hours, I mean, I can make my boss happy by being physically present, but it doesn't serve the purpose. We are barking at the wrong tree. Hard work, yes, but not 70 hours, certainly not.
Mr. Alak, can I ask you this question? Since you have worked for many years of your life, is there also a problem with the way Indians work, with our work ethic? Kaam se zyada chai break, sota breaks, we'll have adda here, adda there. Productivity is all, Rituparna just pointed out to the fact that India has one of the lowest productivities in the world. So even if you're sitting in office for 12 hours a day, your productivity is not going to improve if your work ethic is not going to improve.
No, but I think I agree with Mr. Bandyopadhyay more than I agree with the other two speakers, because, look, any creative job, you're working for 7 days a week. There's no question of your mind stopping, okay? And you talk about skilled and unskilled. Unskilled jobs are required in India at the moment, and all percentages go haywire when you talk about the total number of people who are there. And therefore, unskilled jobs, you give them overtime if you want to, and they will work that much harder, they will earn more money for their family, and the poor get more money. But skilled labor is where the answer lies, is how do you educate people from unskilled to skilled?
Okay.
And that's where the question is going to be. It's not a question of turning around and saying you get 70 hours for 6 days and all. I worked very hard. My father's worked harder, and I worked hard. And people are working less hard because of AI. Right now, they have so much to rely on. And we are stressing the fact that if you can spend time in your house, go ahead and do it with your families. Because Mr. Narayan Murthy, when he began, and
we'll
he
try
set
to fix
up
your audio. We are going to fix your studio. I want you to complete the point about Mr. Narayan Murthy setting up Infosys and maybe his work philosophy and ethic coming from there. But Rituparna, when young people come to you, what are they asking for? Because what I see in my workspace is that young people are extremely clear about the number of hours they want to put in. They're extremely clear that mental well-being is something that they need. And they're very clear that there needs to be a life-work balance. That, 6 days a week simply doesn't cut it. We need those we need 2 days off in a week. We will put in 8 to 9 hours, but no more.
Right. Shreya, I think the youth, what they're looking for is that allow me flexibility and choice and show me what's the North Star, and I will put in the effort. Do all youths do that? I'm not saying that everyone is so motivated, but by and large, what youth today are looking for are these two elements: that give me choice, give me flexibility. I mean, maybe two of them are, they sound very similar, but in the sense, unlike in the past, the new generations, it's not that they have options and they view life from the lens of options, unlike probably a few generations ahead of us also maybe. I think flexibility is another element. There are days when they are ready to be in office round the clock, by the way, to get a job done. I mean, they probably will sleep in office if they have to, but there are days when they would say that, listen, this is a lean phase. Give me the flexibility to just do 6 hours today, right? Or I think that's essentially where the world is headed, Shreya, whether we like it or not. I mean, to be honest, I actually empathize with Mr. Murthy because the world, I mean, some of us, the world or the culture or the way we've built organization, it's very different from today's organization. But rather than nostalgia, it's important for us to adapt and adopt what's going on right now. To be honest, like has been rightly pointed out, there is a lot of infusion of advancement, automation, technology, digitization, and that's what we have to keep demanding and push. My point is that a kid, if they work for 17 hours with a certain skill set, is at the moment will not be able to outdo a kid in Japan who spends the same hours doing the same job. There is no way. What can, by the way, reduce the gap, and India cannot afford to let this gap continue, is the other external impetus that the government really needs to unleash, to bring in that productivity within this country. For a minute, I'm not advocating that our youth needs to be lazy and they do not need to put in effort and hard work. But I think India is at a juncture for us to move up the value chain. We have to work smarter. So I would actually advocate that look for innovative, newer means by which we can crack this code. Rather than advocating that put more hours to it. This will appeal to the new generation. They would be willing to invest more, to be honest. Just telling them work hard, do more hours is not the signaling which will get us the same output that Mr. Murthy and all of us in this room today are looking for and hoping for.
Mr. Alag, you were making the point about Mr. Narayan Murthy starting Infosys when he did, and probably his work ethic being derived from there, the 70-hour week being, the idea being derived from there. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. I was trying to tell you that I knew Narayan Murthy when he started his Infosys, and I knew Mohandas Pai and the entire team when they came across. Look, my thing when I was running Britannia was to finish my job on time. It didn't matter how many hours I put in or I didn't put in. If they said by 9 o'clock in the morning, after 2 days, you had to have a campaign, that's the time when you went in. But the question is, Narayan Murthy was starting a company. The question is, when you start a company, then you have to put in that many hours. You have to do it. I mean, that's what he did. Now, comparing all startups to jobs to whatever else, to unskilled to skilled today is ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, you cannot do it. And therefore, 70 hours or 72 hours, or it could be only 40 hours. That, it depends upon which industry you're in, whether you are an unskilled or skilled job, whether you're in urban or whether you're in rural, how much money do you want to make? See, all of us are in different jobs, and therefore we must think of doing the job on time. And I disagree with the fact that an Indian cannot match anybody in Japan or America. They do it today and they do it all the time. So therefore, I disagree completely that Indians are unable to match, because when you talk to levers, it's the levers, the Indians who are making it. And therefore, it's the Indians who are heading all organizations. To turn around and say Indians don't match, look, I mean, I disagree with that.
Rituparna, I'll give you 20 seconds to respond to that because Mr. Alak's comment is coming on what you said.
Yeah, Shreya, actually, I think let me just clarify and explain. What I mean is, we do know the minimum wage difference between, just take minimum wages in India. I'm not even talking about the higher wages. The minimum wage on an average, and I'm taking an average because every state is different, we will probably make 15,000 rupees a month in India. In Japan, per hour, minimum wage is 1411 yen an hour. I mean, we're talking about a huge difference, is all I'm talking about. I'm just saying, I don't think Indians lack the Indians India is acting as a backbone of talent for the world, and I completely agree with that. But one of the reasons, of course, is that you're getting exceptional talent at a fraction of a cost, definitely. And the second aspect is, my worry is that Indians today, definitely with the same skill set, doing a particular job, is not earning as much as the guy who is in Japan doing the same work. That's my limited point. There is no way I'm saying that the person in Japan is more capable. I'm just saying that productivity also shows up in wages, which is not in India.
Okay. We leave it there. This has been an interesting chat. Mr. Narayan Murthy gave us enough food for thought this Friday evening. We leave it there. Thank you very much. It was good to hear your views. Rituparna, thank you very much for joining us. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, good to have you on the show. Sunil Alak, thank you. And Jitendra Bhargav, good to have you on the show as well. On that note, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's much more on the other side. Do stay with us.